but I want to do it right.
Are you willing to come up and give him some of this money for the wall?
No, nothing for the wall.
The president said, let's make a deal. The Democratic response is basically, go to hell.
A legal immigrant charged with murdering a California police officer appeared in court but did not enter a plea. Perez Arriaga is accused of killing Police Corporal Ronil Singh.
Congresswoman-elect Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says she will vote against the rules package put forth by Nancy Pelosi because it hinders progressive policies.
Romney's niece, Ronna McDaniel, even getting involved, tweeting for an incoming Republican freshman senator to attack the president feeds into what the Democrats and media want.
PETA wanting live animal mascots banned after things got out of control at the Sugar Bowl. The animal rights organization, they're demanding that the schools retire the animals.
Now I know.
But it's Thursday. Welcome aboard, Fox and Friends. Hour one starts right now.
That's right. And anything can happen on the show. Anything can happen down in Washington, as we've seen with the shutdown. And anything can happen this year because we're only 3 days in.
Right. But very little progress was made yesterday as both sides sit down and try to end a 12, 13-day shutdown right before they have elections to decide who's going to be in leadership for the brand new Congress, which really kicks off today. So much going on. They'll have another meeting on Friday. But what took place yesterday was fascinating because this president does things like nobody else. For example, bring in the cameras and I'll freelance for a while. Then I'll go to the Situation Room and try to end a shutdown.
Yeah, in December we saw him with the cameras with Nancy Pelosi and with Chuck Schumer. And this time he said, no, we're meeting in the Situation Room. No cameras allowed, no cell phones allowed. The headlines are, it ended without any progress, people say. Democrats interrupted. They agreed to reconvene on Friday, and the president said, let's make a deal. Democrats said nothing for the wall.
Well, here's what it comes down to. Going into the meeting, and we told you yesterday morning, if you joined us, how it was going to turn out. The president wants, his negotiation is, I want $5.6 billion, but, you know, I'll take less because then that's part of the deal. Nancy Pelosi, to Brian's point, is going to be up for speakership, the election. She does not want her left flank to say, oh, she's not tough enough, I'm not going to vote for her. So she had to say zero. I'm going to give you zero money for the wall, Mr. President. But the president says, I want money for a wall. And he thinks that's what America wants.
As long as it takes, I mean, look, I'm prepared. I think the people of the country think I'm right. I think the people of this country think I'm right. Again, I could have done nothing. I could have had a lot easier presidency by doing nothing. But I'm here. I want to do it right.
So, evidently during the meeting, Kirstjen Nielsen was on Skype, I imagine, or FaceTime. I'm not really sure which. But she was said, hey, first off, Secretary Nielsen is Homeland Security. Tell us what's going on at the border. And her point was, this is not a reason to act. We have a crisis. You have to act. 6 seconds in, Senator Schumer looks over at Nancy Pelosi and basically says, interrupt her. And he takes her down and interrupts her before she could get any of her stats out that would have made for what we would use as a productive conversation.
Right. And that's why they used the Situation Room yesterday, so that they could actually watch those monitors. But instead, the Democrats wanted to shut her down, did not want to hear the rationale behind the administration's request for this $5 billion and the wall money, because instead they wanted to talk about how we're going to open up the government. And it's like, we're not going to talk about that right now. Let's talk about the wall because it is a crisis. And in fact, after that meeting, the Department of Homeland Security sent out a list of why it is a crisis. By the numbers. For instance, one of the things that I saw yesterday was in Guatemala right now, there are 15,000 Guatemalans who are about to form a caravan, and guess where they're heading? And then you look at the other statistics. In each of the last 3 months, 60,000 migrants have come to our southern border. 85% of the 60,000 a month have tried to enter the country illegally. 15% went to the ports, and they didn't have any documents.
It's numbers like that that are baffling a lot of people. Katie Waldman is one of those. She's the DHS spokeswoman, and she sent out this statement. Democrats in the room either don't care that there is a humanitarian crisis on the border or just prefer ignorance. It was incredibly disheartening that they don't want to know the facts when making policy.
Every day, 65% of the people who come to the border are children, unaccompanied. Why people don't know there's a crisis. What I would really appreciate is when you cut off somebody with stats, you are saying this is pure politics. I don't want to know the facts unless you have counterfacts. But they don't, because they don't want to move forward. And maybe it's because Nancy Pelosi can't possibly show any give before she locks up her second term as Speaker. Congressman Kevin McCarthy wants to be Speaker one day. Now he's the highest ranking Republican in the House. Said this about what he saw.
Once the secretary started, the Senator Schumer interrupted her. They really didn't want to hear it, and they challenged some of the points the secretary made. So we were hopeful that we could get more in the negotiation. I know the vice president had sat down with Senator Schumer, had given him paper, had worked to try to come to an agreement, find common ground. I'd hope we'd get a little more of that today. Hopefully Friday we'll be able to get there.
And see, the key to Friday is Friday will be after she is elected Speaker, and then she could negotiate. Maybe. Because yesterday, she wasn't budging.
Are you willing to come up and give him some of this money for the wall? Because apparently that's the sticking point.
No, nothing for the wall. We're talking about border security.
Nothing for the wall, but that means it's
well,
a
we can go
non-starter.
through this all, back and forth. No. How many more times can we say no? Nothing for the wall.
Doesn't seem like there's a lot of give there. Senator Lamar Alexander writes an editorial today. He says, look, you got a couple of options. One, give the president $1.6 billion and another $1 billion for security at ports of entry. Approve a bipartisan bill linking the wall funding with protection for young immigrants brought illegally to the country as children. Resurrect the 2013 comprehensive immigration overhaul that included huge increases in border security measures. That's a guy, a senator from Tennessee, who's just saying, listen, I'm going to be leaving here in 2 years. I've seen this before. No one's benefiting. 800,000 people don't know there's not a paycheck. The pandas can't get fed. We can't go visit a leopard.
The pandas are being fed.
Okay,
it's
good.
just not open.
We can't see them being fed, which is worse.
Panda Cam is turned off.
The Panda Cam is turned off. Yeah. Someone unplugged the Panda Cam. So we cannot go to the zoo. We cannot go to the Smithsonian. 800,000 people can't get paychecks, automatic deposits. They're forced to have vacations they don't want. There's a way out, and this is before day one of Nancy Pelosi's agenda. That's why I think she's eventually going to have to flip, because she can't get out of the blocks unless this thing is done.
The president ran on $25 billion, said he needed $25 billion. Now he's asking for $5 billion. He's trying to negotiate. The Democrats say absolutely not. You heard Nancy say we're not giving him any extra money. Senator Lindsey Graham summed up what he saw, or what his opinion is, and he sums it up like this.
The president said, let's make a deal. The Democratic response is basically, go to hell. They're going to send a bill from the House to the Senate that has no money for the wall. It's not going to see the light of day. Mitch McConnell's never going to bring a bill onto the floor of the Senate that doesn't have money for the wall. We need the wall. They've all voted for the wall. And the only way we're ever going to get the wall is to fight for it.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen today. The Democrats are going to unveil two different bills. One will be to fund most of the federal government through next September. The other one, and that's the crucial one, is the one that will fund the Department of Homeland Security through the first week in February. That's where the fight's going to be. Because going forward, obviously, they're going to fund the government, and that'll get that out of the way. And then they can have the fight over the wall money, because with that set aside, then that would explain why Mitch McConnell said we could have a shutdown for weeks. However, as the Washington Post notes this morning, with the shutdown, the impact, much of the federal government has not been touched. And a lot of people across the country don't even notice that part of the federal government is shut down.
Well, the jobs that are staying open are jobs that are related to national security and those essential jobs like Social Security, military,
Your checks
FBI,
are coming through.
Border Patrol. That's right.
Nancy Pelosi wants to be an effective leader. If she learned anything from the first time and why there needs to be a second time, here's all the government shutdown list, which is great for everyone except for those listening on radio. Yeah. But that if she's got to be a productive leader. I think that if there's somebody in Congress that's not running for president that wants to just be a leader and do the job they're elected to do, you can't do it if the government's partially shut down. That's my sense is there'll be some type of acquiescence. And part of the reason is There is a legitimate crisis at the border. It is not made up. You ask the people of Brazil or Colombia what is happening because Central America is falling apart. But they are cracking down. This guy in Brazil, no one's getting in. He's like, there's too many diseases. They're rushing in. There's no order at the border. I'm shutting this whole thing down. We're not the only one with these issues. We should deal with this with a level head and get politics out of it, especially 2 years from the next election.
Well, it's day 13. The longest a government shutdown has taken place was in 1996, and it was for 21 days. We'll have to see. All right, let's hand it over to Jill. You know, has some headlines for us. Hey, Jill.
That's right. Good morning to you. Let's start you off with this story that we've been following. And the illegal immigrant charged with murdering a California police officer will get a mental health exam. By request of his lawyer, the case will be delayed until February when the results are ready. In his first court appearance, the suspect revealed he was living under the alias of Gustavo Perez Arriaga. His real name, though, is Pablo Virgen Mendoza. He is accused of killing Corporal Ronil Singh during a traffic stop the morning after Christmas. The Tunnels to Towers Foundation has raised nearly $240,000 for his wife and infant son. You can donate by heading to our website. The American man accused of spying in Russia meets with U.S. Ambassador John Huntsman. Paul Whelan, a retired Marine, is detained in Moscow on espionage charges. The State Department is demanding answers about the nature of Whelan's arrest and why it took so long to gain access to him. Whelan's family claims the Michigan man is not a spy and that he was in Russia to attend a wedding. Bernie Sanders is under fire for his response to sexual harassment allegations during his 2016 campaign.
So I was a little bit busy running around the country trying to make the case. We did everything right in terms of human resources, in terms of addressing the needs that I'm hearing from now. If I run, we will do better next time.
His remarks come hours after a report by the New York Times claimed the allegations were never dealt with. The report also says women on the Sanders campaign were paid less than men. Golden Globes co-host Sandra Oh says she's keeping politics out of the show. In an interview with co-host Andy Samberg for The Hollywood Reporter, Oh says, quote, "I don't think I could do that. I don't think it's shallow to one, have fun, and two, be honestly celebratory." She also said she's not interested in mentioning the president. The Golden Globes are this Sunday night, so stay tuned to see if politics is discussed.
Did they ever pick an Oscars host?
That I got to be honest with you, I do not
think
know.
so.
Do they have a robot? Do they use a Rumba?
I think there's still Rumba.
They talk about
the vacuum?
Yeah, I don't know.
the little disc.
Yeah, that's the only robot I know.
No, I think they were talking about maybe putting a lot of different celebrities in. Who knows? I mean,
Joel, would you
still watch
find out?
that show?
Exactly.
Okay. Joel's going to find out for me.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel. It is almost 13 minutes after the top of the hour. Nancy Pelosi's daughter says you should be afraid of her mother. Be very afraid. Listen.
She'll cut your head off and you won't even know you're bleeding. That's all you need to know about her.
Former Congressman Jason Chaffetz is here to react to that coming up.
Plus, Democrats are ready to make climate change a key part of their 2020 platform, but is that really a winning message? Our next guest has the science to prove the Dems could be wrong.
Today's the day Democrats take official control of the House, but not the Senate. And one of their main platforms expected to be climate change. Dozens even backing a new Green Deal to eliminate fossil fuels, even if it means raising taxes and hurting jobs. But latest polls show Americans' fears about climate change has never gone above 45%. So is this really a winning message for Democrats? Let's ask Mark Morano, Executive Director of ClimateDepot.com and author of Politically Incorrect Guide to Climate Change. Mark, does this work, climate change, as an agenda item to put you into office?
It has never worked yet. And if you go back, even President Obama tried to make this an issue and couldn't. You have MSNBC, who has admitted they can't even mention climate change during prime time because it's a ratings killer. Gallup polling has showed since at least 1989 that the public's concern about global warming has remained relatively stable, with ebbs and flows during the time of Al Gore's original movie and other things. But it is not a winning issue. And in this past election, 3 out of 4 climate-based initiatives failed. including Governor Inslee's Washington state carbon tax, which he wants to run for president as the central theme on climate, but he couldn't even get his own state. Once again, failed to pass a carbon tax. So you even have the leaders of this movement failing to get their own troops in line, but yet they somehow think they're going to impose a climate new Green Deal on America.
But I do think the demo, the next generation, because of how they've been schooled, is much more attuned to what's going on with climate awareness anyway. Bernie Sanders says this, he's hardly a Gen Xer. He says we must look at climate change as if it were a devastating military attack against the United States and the entire planet, and we must respond accordingly. What does he plan on doing?
You know, this is silly. We're gonna treat now carbon dioxide, a trace essential gas, with humans inhale oxygen, we exhale CO2, as somehow akin to the Nazi Party and a World War II initiative, which is what they're claiming. They want a mobilization like World War II. Here's the bottom line. This has nothing to do with fighting an enemy. This has the Green New Deal, and everything they're doing is literally, and I go back in my book and show in the 1960s when the environmental movement became radicalized, no matter what the environmental scare was, overpopulation, global cooling, species extinction, famine, resource scarcity, they always had the same solution: more government control, central planning, and this is no different. The Green New Deal and this idea of mobilizing to fight the climate is the exact same. They're proposing central planning, has nothing to do with climate.
But Mark, you are for being responsible, learning new about clean burning fuels and things to that nature. How do you feel about people like Senator Barrasso proposing incentives for people to capture carbon as opposed to penalties and punishment?
Well, there's all kinds of proposals. Everyone's for energy efficiency, for a clean environment. Oddly, the more carbon-based fuels you can introduce in the developing world, Africa, South America, Asia, the cleaner the environment gets. You have less people burning dung in their huts. You have less people dumping sewage into the rivers because you get infrastructure. So carbon-based fuels actually improve the environment. And beyond that, everyone wants efficiency, but you don't ban energy that works and mandate energy that's nowhere near ready for prime time. All this so-called renewable, and that's what they're going after here.
Gotcha. Marc Morano, I think you know a lot about this. We'll have you back because this election season has already started. Marc Morano, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next, the next 2 hours and 40 minutes, Mitt Romney doubling down on his criticism of President Trump. I'll stop.
But I know what my principles are, what I think is right for the country, and I know that right now the country is as divided as I've ever seen it.
Ronna McDaniel, his niece, in to weigh in.
We have some quick headlines for you. Nearly a year after 17 people were killed in a mass shooting in Parkland, Florida, a new report finds state schools are still unsafe. The 458-page review outlines mistakes made by law enforcement. It also includes safety recommendations like changing Florida law to allow trained teachers to carry guns. And a federal judge throws out lawsuits against tech companies related to the 2015 terror attack in San Bernardino. Victims had accused Facebook, Twitter, and Google of allowing ISIS to grow on their platforms. The attack was carried out by an extremist couple in California. Steve?
All right, thanks, Ainsley. The president taking a swipe at incoming Utah Senator Mitt Romney following Romney's anti-Trump op-ed in the Washington Post.
I wish Mitt could be more of a team player. You know, I'm surprised he did it this quickly. I was expecting something, but I was surprised he did it this quickly. If he fought really hard against President Obama, like he does against me, he would have won the election.
And the president isn't the only one taking on incoming Utah Senator Mitt Romney for his anti-Trump op-ed. Romney's niece, the RNC chairwoman, tweeting in part, quote, for an incoming Republican freshman senator to attack Donald Trump as their first act feeds into what the Democrats and media want and is disappointing and unproductive. Here with more is RNC chairwoman and the niece of the guy who wrote the anti-Trump op-ed, Ronna McDaniel. Ronna, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
What was Mitt thinking?
Well, he gave an interview yesterday, and he said, I felt like I needed to get ahead and explain how I'm going to respond. As party chair, not as Mitt's niece, I just wanted to point out that this is what Democrats want. They want to see infighting with our party, and I see voters across the country. I talk to people in our party, and they say to me all the time, we want Republicans to stick together. We want them to support this president. He's doing great things for this country, and let's make sure that we're taking on Schumer and Pelosi. That's what we need to do as Republicans, because this is going to be a fight, and they are leading the progressive socialist agenda, and the president and Republicans are leading the economic prosperity and this turnaround for our country.
So, Ronna, then are you saying that your uncle was actually helping the Democrats with their messaging by attacking the president?
I think anytime Republicans are critical of this president, it becomes a media feeding frenzy. They love the anti-Trump narrative within our own party. And I think there's other things we can talk about as Republicans. We can talk about Schumer and Pelosi being unwilling to open the government because of border security, very reasonable measures that the president's putting forward. We can talk about Medicare for all and what that would do to bankrupt our country. There's a lot of things that we can take on together as Republicans. And Republican voters don't want to see us infighting. Yeah. And that's what I see as party chair.
Well, it was a number of years ago that your uncle was the Republican nominee, and most of the Republican Party was on his side. He didn't win, but he ran a good race. But now a majority of Republicans are on Trump's side, and a lot of them are angry at your uncle.
Well, I love my uncle, and my tweet yesterday had nothing to do with family. I would have done this to any freshman incoming senator, and I would have said, hey, let's focus on the real issues here, which are the Democrats who are proposing dangerous policies for our country. And let's remind Americans about the good things that have come out of the Trump administration, judicially, taking on ISIS, funding our military. Wages are up 3%, 4 million new jobs. We have a media that 90% of the coverage is negative against this president. The Democrats are obstructing at an unprecedented level. As a party, we need to come together if we're going to be successful, because we're up against unprecedented odds and this juggernaut of negative Democrat and media attention. So we've got to come together, and Republicans want to see our senators and our congressional members support this president. There's room for disagreement.
Absolutely.
But let's come together when we can, and let's remember Schumer and Pelosi are the ones that are leading this country in a bad direction, or trying to.
I read this morning in Politico that apparently your uncle gave you a heads up. He said, hey, going to put you in a tight jam, just want you to know, and then you wound up calling the president.
Yeah, I was in Aquaman, the movie Aquaman, on New Year's Day. All of us go to the movies, and I got a little bit of a heads up, and I, of course, let the president know. And I think, my Uncle Mitt doesn't want to put me in a bad position at all. But the reality is, I acted as party chair. He's going to act as senator. And I'm going to say to anybody in our party, our voters want you to support our president. Take your bully pulpit, take your media savvy and your leadership, and attack the Democrats, because they're the ones that our party wants to see you take on.
After you sent out your tweet, did you hear back from Mitt Romney?
Yeah, he sent me a note. Our family fights. Not fights, but we've had disagreements on politics for a long time. This is part of our family. He said, you know what, you've got to do what you've got to do. He understands.
Well,
he understands.
Some people think that your uncle might now be the leader of the Never Trump movement.
I don't think that that's the case. He has said he will work with the president. The president said, let's be a team. Let's work together. He put out an olive branch. I hope that they can work together. Think of how powerful these two men could be if they're working together on issues and what we can do for our country.
There's been a lot of speculation since the op-ed that now maybe Mitt Romney wants to challenge the president in a primary in 2020.
Yeah, he addressed that yesterday on another show, and he said, no, that's not the case. I'm not going to run. I've run before. That's not why I'm here. He's here to represent the people of Utah. Let's come together on the issues that we know are going to benefit the American people, and work together as a party to put policies forward that continue the economic prosperity and the growth that we're seeing for this country. And President Trump has led the way. He has been a leader of our party. He has been a change agent, and Americans are better off because of his leadership.
All right. Ronna McDaniel, the RNC chairwoman, Mitt Romney's niece. Going to be a little awkward at the next family reunion. Just saying. All right.
No, we'll be fine.
All right, Ronna, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Meanwhile, we are in day 13 of the partial government shutdown. Democrats are not budging on President Trump's request for wall money. But neither is the president. Jason Chaffetz says if they won't spend $5 billion on a wall, they should spend $25 billion on border security. He'll explain that idea next. Plus, we've shown you the pictures of police department grieving about a burned Krispy Kreme donut truck. There is a sweet ending to this story, and it's coming up.
You know, as party chair, not as Mitt's niece, I just wanted to point out that this is what Democrats want. They want to see infighting with our party. My Uncle Mitt doesn't want to put me in a bad position at all. But the reality is I acted as party chair. He's going to act as senator. And I'm going to say to anybody in our party, our voters want you to support our president. Take your bully pulpit, take your media savvy and your leadership and attack the Democrats because they're the ones that our party wants to see you take on.
Yeah, her uncle didn't want to put her in an odd spot, but man, did he ever before he actually officially took the job. A man joining us right now knows Mitt Romney quite well. Jason Chaffetz, Fox News contributor, former congressman, fresh off hosting Laura Ingraham last night. That's why, and he's hosting again tonight. That's why we gave him the excuse of staying in Washington to do the interview. Hey, so you're in an odd spot. Jason, you know Mitt Romney quite well, and you sit there as a Republican in Washington, D.C. Did he help or hurt the party?
He hurt the party. I think he also hurt himself. And he hurt the Utahns. Remember, he was elected by the people of Utah to represent the state of Utah to solve problems. This doesn't solve any problems. This creates a new problem. This was not the Mitt Romney we ever saw in Utah during the 2018 election. He accepted Donald Trump's endorsement enthusiastically. You never heard him talking about this during the campaign. In October, in the last debate, he was asked specifically about his feelings about Donald Trump. He said he essentially agreed with Donald Trump on all the policy issues. But to do this before you're even sworn in really undercuts his effectiveness. And here we are talking about it instead of the core issues of the day.
Well, some of the articles this morning say he did it. You know, we were all asking, why would he do this? Why wouldn't he be loyal to the party and loyal to the president who considered him for Secretary of State? And they seem to have mended their disagreements. So why would he do this? And there's some articles out this morning saying that he will be the leader of the Never Trumpers now and that he could possibly run for president in 2020.
Well, I hope not. That's not who the people of Utah voted and supported to try to represent the state of Utah. That is not going to be productive for us as one of our two senators representing here. And I got to tell you, personally, I'm very disappointed. I had several personal conversations where he went out of his way to say, I don't want to get in a tit for tat with the president. Well, this is exactly the opposite of that.
And you spent 100 days out campaigning for him, trying to get him elected President of the United States once upon a time. Let's talk a little bit about an area of expertise for you. You've been in the Congress for a number of years, and now Nancy Pelosi later today is going to unveil a couple of bills to get the government going. However, one of them to fund the Department of Homeland Security is a no-starter because it doesn't have any wall money in it. How do you get, and you know about this, Nancy Pelosi says zero wall money. The president says $5.6 billion. How do we reopen the government with those two people at such loggerheads?
Well, I don't think the Democrats, they've really put themselves into a box because they can't define what border security is. To say they want more drones, I've been down to the border. I've seen it. You know what? Drones can't fly about half the time because of the weather down on the border. So that's a very naive answer. And it was exemplified from the fact that when they went into the Oval Office, or they went into the White House in the Situation Room, they cut off the Homeland Security Secretary, wouldn't even let her give a briefing. There are things. If I were the president, I would say, really, we're not going to do $5 billion for the wall? Then let's go back to the $25 billion to actually secure the border and deal with pay and all these other issues that actually will secure the border.
You know what's interesting is if you have people storming the border, unless you put Hellfire missiles on the drones, it's not going to do much good. You could just point out or highlight them within John Madden Telestrator, all the people that are coming in unencumbered. And Nancy Pelosi's idea of mowing the grass, I don't think flies either.
No, let's do what the Border Patrol wants. Guess what the Border Patrol needs? They need more personnel, and the president signed an executive order to do that and try to plus them up by 5,000. We actually have less Border Patrol agents on the ground than we did when the president started. They wanted 10,000 more ICE officers. Guess what? We got like 100 or 2. And so that's going to take some real money. And what Nancy Pelosi is offering is not border security, and the mainstream media needs to push her. What do you think border security is? It's an impediment to come across the border, and what the Border Patrol wants is a wall. That's what we should be doing.
That's why you're saying if you don't want to give us the $5 billion for the wall, then give us $25 billion, because that's how much it's going to take to secure our border without a wall. Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Alexandra Pelosi, she is a documentary filmmaker. She's the daughter of Nancy Pelosi, and she praised her mother in an interview, talking about how tough her mom is. Listen.
She'll cut your head off and you won't even know you're bleeding. That's all you need to know about her. No one ever won betting against Nancy Pelosi.
She went on to say that if she's in charge, or when she becomes in charge today, it's going to be a beautiful America. What are your thoughts?
Yikes. I think she thinks that's a compliment for her mother that you're going to cut your head off. Nancy Pelosi and I, we share a birthday, and almost every year I invited her to go to Five Guys and get a burger, but she never took me up on it. I'm shocked.
Well, with that kind of assessment from her daughter, do you think she's, if she does become the speaker, and of course she will she be able to negotiate, or are we going to have such a bitter taste of divided government over the next 2 years?
I think the sole goal of Nancy Pelosi is to take down Donald Trump. I think that's the only thing that she's focused on. But the president is on the right side of the issue when it comes to the border wall and national security, and he just needs to hold the line, and those senators need a backbone to make sure that they've got his back as well.
Yeah, because if she wants to do anything, she can't do it with a lockout. She can't do it with a shutdown. So she's got to get past this. Even if she wants to take down the president, no one's going to. If you have 800,000 people waiting for a paycheck, it's not going to work. Jason, thanks so much. You can get some rest now.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the call is terrifying. A woman begs 911 for help as her car is sinking into a muddy ditch.
There's water getting in the car and I can't get out. I'm freezing.
Okay, how deep of water are you in?
Well, now it's up to my chest.
The car was upside down, as you can see in those images. That woman and the deputies who saved her life with just seconds to spare join us live next.
Plus, what are voters saying of the partial government shutdown this morning? Pete Hegseth is having breakfast with friends in Indiana. Pete.
I believe at 2019, we're back in the diners. We're at Grandma's Pancake House in Shelbyville, Indiana. I'm reading the Shelbyville News. Tells me there's still a shutdown and the Democrats have a new leader in the House. Vernon, you run a wood shop here in town. Vernon, what do you think of Nancy Pelosi becoming the new leader of the House of Representatives?
I think it's a mistake.
Simple, straightforward, to the point. Vernon thinks it's a mistake. We're going to talk to other folks here at the diner, hearing from the people, not the pundits, and we're going to have some, of course, it's a pancake house. So Pete's having pancakes this morning. Stick with us on Fox and Friends on the other side.
Good morning to you. Back with some headlines now. Krispy Kreme keeping its word to cops who were devastated by a delivery truck fire. The company sending dozens of fresh donuts to the Lexington Police Department in Kentucky after a tweet of officers crying next to a burned out truck went viral. It is important to note nobody got hurt.
Yeah, BBC picked it up all over the country. It's unbelievable, really. I just can't believe how it's taken off.
The cops say the donuts provide a sprinkling of joy. PETA wants live animal mascots banned after things got a bit out of control at the Sugar Bowl. We showed you the Texas Longhorns' 1,800-pound mascot Bevo charging at Georgia's Bulldog Uga after the bull broke out of its pen. Well, now the animal rights organization is demanding the schools retire the animals, saying public appearances can frighten them and lead to dangerous situations. So we will see if the schools comply. Ainsley.
Okay. Today on Capitol Hill, Democrats officially taking control of the House as Congress returns to work this week during a shutdown. So what do the voters think?
Let's ask Pete Hegseth. He's talking to voters over breakfast with friends at Grandma's Pancake House in Shelbyville, Indiana. Ladies and gentlemen, Pancake Pete.
I will own that nickname. I want it. Keep it coming. Love it. We're at Grandma's Pancake House here in Shelbyville, Indiana. As you mentioned, Shelbyville County went overwhelmingly for President Trump in 2016 in the election. Also went for Mike Braun in 2018 as he unseated Joe Donnelly. Here it also happens to be the district of George Pence, older brother of Vice President Mike Pence. He starts his first day in Congress as a representative of this district in Indiana. Speaking of Congress, we've got a lot of opinions about the new future Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and Democrats taking over the House. Vernon, I asked you briefly what you thought of Nancy Pelosi, and you gave me a short and sweet answer. I'm going to ask you again, though. What do you expect from Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats as they take over the House of Representatives today?
I would expect the same thing from her that I would from one of my employees. Do your job. Don't do anything that doesn't pertain to your job, and do what helps the country, not her or the Democrats or the Republicans.
You've got a lot of frustrations on both sides and feel like they just need to find a way to make something work.
Amen.
Appreciate that, Vernon. This is Richard and Janet. Richard, thank you for your service in the Marine Corps. Appreciate that. As you look at this shutdown and the wall, President has said as long as it takes. Do you agree with him?
I agree with that. Border security is number one in the country. Coming from the military, and we always have to be secure. And I believe that we need to concentrate on ourselves and work with them and stop this influx of immigrants coming in. For right now, that we can get our stuff together.
Yeah, get our own house in order. Janet, do you anticipate the gridlock will break, and who do you blame for that?
I don't know that it'll break. I hope that it does. I hope that they can get along and cooperate and get things done for the people. That's what we hired them to be there for.
Do you think Nancy will do that in good faith?
Well, it doesn't look like it, but there's always hope. We can always pray and hope that they get things done for us, who put them in there in the first place.
Doing things for us Americans is the overwhelming theme I've heard from everyone we've talked to so far. They want to put the country first, America first, as opposed to the petty politics of point scoring in Washington, D.C. Guys, back to you, but if you're in the Indiana area, come out to Grandma's this morning. We'd love to hear your opinion as we talk to the people here in 2019.
The name
Guys.
really sells that place, doesn't it?
It really does.
No.
And there's Pete doing his job, which is what Vernon says Washington, D.C.
That's right.
All right. In the meantime, 11 minutes before the top of the hour, a woman begs 911 for help as her car is sinking in a muddy ditch, and she's inside.
There's water getting in the car, and I can't get out. I'm freezing.
Okay, how deep of water are you in?
Well, now it's up to my chest.
Well, that woman and the deputies who saved her life with seconds to spare join us live next.
And Elizabeth Warren slamming President Trump as she gears up for her 2020 run. But there's one issue that she says the president got right.
Also went for Mike Braun in 2018 as he unseated Joe Donnelly. Here it also happens to be the district of George Pence, older brother of Vice President Mike Pence. He starts his first day in Congress as a representative of this district in Indiana. Speaking of Congress, we've got a lot of opinions about the new future Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, and Democrats taking over the House. Vernon, I asked you briefly what you thought of Nancy Pelosi, and you gave me a short and sweet answer. I'm going to ask you again, though. What do you expect from Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats as they take over the House of Representatives today?
I would expect the same thing from her that I would from one of my employees. Do your job. Don't do anything that doesn't pertain to your job, and do what helps the country, not her or the Democrats or the Republicans.
You've got a lot of frustrations on both sides and feel like they just need to find a way to make something work.
Amen.
Appreciate that, Vernon. This is Richard and Janet. Richard, thank you for your service in the Marine Corps. Appreciate that. As you look at this shutdown and the wall, President has said as long as it takes. Do you agree with him?
I agree with that. Border security is number one in the country. Coming from the military, and we always have to be secure. And I believe that we need to concentrate on ourselves and work with them and stop this influx of immigrants coming in. For right now, that we can get our stuff together.
Yeah, get our own house in order. Janet, do you anticipate the gridlock will break, and who do you blame for that?
I don't know that it'll break. I hope that it does. I hope that it does. I hope that they can get along and cooperate and get things done for the people. That's what we hired them to be there for.
Do you think Nancy will do that in good faith?
Well, it doesn't look like it, but there's always hope. We can always pray and hope that they get things done for us who put them in there in the first place.
Doing things for us Americans is the overwhelming theme I've heard from everyone we've talked to so far. They want to put the country first, America first, as opposed to the petty politics of point scoring in Washington, D.C. Guys, back to you. But if you're in the Indiana area, come out to Grandma's this morning. We'd love to hear your opinion as we talk to the people here in 2019.
The name
Guys.
really sells that place, doesn't it?
It really does.
No.
And there's Pete doing his job, which is what Vernon says Washington, D.C. should
That's
do.
right.
All right. In the meantime, 11 minutes before the top of the hour, a woman begs 911 for help as her car is sinking in a muddy ditch, and she's inside.
There's water getting in the car and I can't get out. I'm freezing.
Okay, how deep of water are you in?
Well, now it's up to my chest.
Well, that woman and the deputies who saved her life, with seconds to spare, join us live next.
And Elizabeth Warren slamming President Trump as she gears up for her 2020 run. But there's one issue that she says the president got right.